All right, you guys, it's episode 46 of Inner Demons. And without further ado, I'm going to get straight back into it. So check it out, you guys. As you guys already know, last night I dropped 2 episodes of War Stories, episode 49 and 50. Tonight, I'm going to try to get out a couple of Inner Demons. Hopefully, I can get through them. At least I'm going to get one out to you guys. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to get straight back into it. Now, I watched the last episode, episode 45 of Inner Demons, to kind of help push me along and to remind me of where I was at. And I believe I was talking about the power struggle that was just beginning to develop within leadership. Now, I think I need to back up a little bit because there's some things that when thinking about it in retrospect, I skipped over them. So bear with me, you guys. I'm going to back up, and there's some things I'm going to talk about that I forgot to mention probably, if it wasn't last episode, the time before that. I'm coming in and out of Corcoran and Pelican Bay so many times that I kind of lose track of what violation I'm on, what's happening during those times. So, maybe it's better for me to sit down and kind of draft it out so that I have an idea of where I'm at. I don't get lost like that. Anyway, so the last episode, I started to talk about the power struggle that began to develop between leadership. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of this, into the real deep into the nitty gritty of it. If you guys are interested in knowing about that, the politics and all that, watch the profiles that I already done on those: the exposition, organizational rebirth, and the state retort. Those 3 profiles right there go as in depth as you can get into the Constitution, into everything that was happening, into some of the filters that were being intercepted and falling into the wrong hands. So those 3 right there will give you guys a clear perspective about everything that was happening. Now, let me just kind of explain in short order of what happened because of Operation Black Widow. Now, when Operation Black Widow broke, the Fed's whole agenda obviously was to indict NF leadership on a federal indictment, to have their state sentences commuted to federal sentences, to send them to federal prison, and to have them dispersed throughout different USPs across the nation. This way, they wouldn't be together and they would no longer be able to put their minds in their heads together and continue to conspire, to scheme, and plot. They would be separated. Now, we all know that didn't happen. They all went to ADX. A lot of them linked up in different prisons, and they're together and they're continuing to build. If anything, this just helped the NF metastasize outside of the state of California and help them grow like the Mexican Mafia has done, like the Aryan Brotherhood has done. It's no longer just a California thing now. There's regiments popping up everywhere: Kansas City, Florida, Utah, Kentucky, Mississippi. I mean, there's regiments everywhere. So that was the Fed's agenda, was to basically get them off kilter and throw them off. But it never throw them off track. But it never happens. The feds, they go after these big criminal organizations, and for a temporary time, they might throw them off track and disrupt business, as they know it. But it never lasts too long. They either reappoint new leadership or they end up recuperating over the course of time. The NF would do the same thing. Now, the power struggle that developed between the guys that the C's that got left behind in the Bay and leadership, what ended up happening is this. So there was protocols set in place for situations that might have occurred where leadership became incommunicado, or they were put in a position where they were rendered basically incapable of running the organization. Now, this situation right there definitely fell up under that. It fell up under that. So these guys were going to end up going to federal custody. They were going to get put into Santa Rita or the federal or the Glenn McGuire facility. And, they were going to be under a lot of scrutiny. So the best thing, according to, well, let me say this. Let me back up. The brothers in the Bay felt like the best thing for them to do would be to relinquish those positions under those protocols and to transition everything over according to how everything was set up, the 15-to-1 sliding scale, depending on status and grade. Now, the brothers probably would have done that. In the past, Pinky did that. When Pinky was indicted in Santa Clara County, he left his position with Cuete. He did what he was supposed to do. He relinquished his position until he went and dealt with his legal issues, and then he came back and he resumed. So what ended up happening, though, is these brothers, they get to Santa Rita and they probably, they put their minds together and they're probably like, you know what, we should we could relinquish these positions. However, we have more than 3/4 of the OGB right here, the organizational governing body. And with that said, because they had more than 3/4 of the organizational governing body, I mean, they had the inner council, the general council, and the 3 high offices, the 3 generals. So basically what I'm trying to tell you guys is they had the powers to revise, recreate, redraft the Constitution and NF law, especially in this area right here. This was kind of like a gray area. That's what they did, and that's the misconception. A lot of people are saying, you know what, they ran with it. They took the money and ran, and they left these brothers high and dry. That's not what they did. They rewrote the law, and they had the power to do it. People might not have liked it, but they had that authority to do that under NF law, under the Constitution, under the subdivision. So that's what they did. And they probably figured, you know what, we're going to federal prison, and this is another whole system that we're going to have to control. So let's keep this as still one body, one leadership, and, we'll just control both systems. That's what happened. Now, these brothers that were up in the Bay, they started pushing back, though. They were like, you know what, nah. They took all the money with them. We don't have nothing left. We have no contacts. We don't have none of the contacts with the RCs out there, the figureheads on the streets. This is bullshit. This isn't the way it was supposed to go down. So they started going back and forth, bickering. And I told you guys, I kind of got caught up in it for a minute. When I went to Corcoran, I had the honors, and I say that with a little bit of humor, of stripping Carlitos and reappointing Memo as the RC over there in Corcoran. Because basically, Corny and them felt like Carlitos was he was taking direction from the Bay, from the brothers up in the Bay, from Conejo, who shouldn't have been involved in any type of leadership position because he had been stripped. Conejo was like, you know what? Now that they're gone, I can come back out and start doing my thing again. Now I can come back out and be a leader again. But that's not how it works. He was stripped, and his street say was taken away. Now, just because those brothers got indicted and they end up going to federal prison doesn't mean that still does not apply. That still is to be honored. But Conejo looked at that as a way, you know what? Here's an opportunity for me to come back out, be a leader, and to come out and start doing my thing again. And that's what he did. So, the whole Corcoran thing with Carlitos, once that kind of blew over, I would end up paroling from Corcoran. Now, I would still be living out in Salinas at that time. And this is still around the time I was running around with Smokey. And, we were out there together, basically overseeing the Salinas Regiment. Now, because I seen this massive power struggle beginning to develop, I knew that a lot of brothers were going to get caught up in it. And unfortunately, more NR members would end up getting victimized and caught up in it than NF members. But a lot of brothers would end up getting caught up in it anyway. So what I did was I organized a massive meeting out there. It was under the auspices of a barbecue, under the, I told everybody I was gonna be throwing a barbecue, and we were gonna all meet out there at a certain area. It was gonna be at a brother named Barbecue Bob's house. You guys should be seeing his picture. Good dude, solid homie. Was the type of homie that used to, was never NF, was never NR, used to function as a norteño when he went to prison. When he was younger, he was running around being wild. But he got out, got married, got a job, stopped drinking, and just started doing his thing. However, he still loved the homies. So he would open up his doors for a lot of us. Baki and Bubba and all them, that was their boy. Whenever we needed to throw any kind of meetings or get-togethers, he would let us do it in his backyard. He had a big-ass backyard. Fool had a dog that looked like a hyena, straight up. It had the markings of a hyena, but it was like a cross between a Malamute and some other kind of Asian husky or Alaskan husky or something. It was crazy. But anyway, so Barbecue Bob would let us come over there and hold meetings at his house. And that's where I arranged that we had this massive get-together. Now, my thing was I didn't want these brothers to get caught up in this power struggle. And I wanted to push all these guys to be on the same page with us, with me, Smokey, and a couple of other brothers that talked about it. We wanted to get them on the same page, whereas, you know what, these guys that got indicted in Operation Black Widow, they are the leadership. So that they've been leadership, and that's who we're going to continue to support. We're not gonna get into this and start following the Bay and just get caught up in all that. So I felt like it was the right thing to do, based on my understanding of the Constitution, NF law, and everything that was happening. And trust and believe, I got a very good, thorough understanding of how NF law, how it works, and exactly what the Constitution, the proper interpretation of the Constitution is. So I understood it. And because I understood it, my purpose was to bring them brothers out there and to break it down, to break it all down for them so that they would, see that these brothers were doing the right thing and that they had the power and authority to do so, and not to be swayed by the false propaganda, the negative propaganda that was being floated out there by a lot of cats that were working with the Bay. So I held this meeting, and, there was a lot of C's in attendance that day. San Francisco, San Jose was out there. Watsonville was out there. Of course, Salinas was out there. There was, I want to say the Bay, East Bay was out there, and there was a lot of homies that came, that showed up. I don't remember exactly everybody, but a lot of brothers showed up. We threw a big circle. It was a huge circle. It was probably like 20 or 30 of us. And, I broke it down. I broke down the entire, everything that happened from Operation Black Widow up until, the power struggle started to develop. And, I went into the intricacies of it. I went into the politics of it. I went into the Constitution and explained everything so that everybody had a clear understanding. And, there was, to be honest with you, Baki's my boy, and I got nothing bad to say about him. But Baki was actually one that was, in the beginning, kind of lightweight pushing against the guys in the feds, because Baki, he's been around for a while, and sharp dude. He's a sharp C, and I got nothing but love and respect for him. But his thing was like, you know what? Those brothers, man, they're outdated. The last time they've been out in the streets is, the 70s. And they're still trying to push us to do things out there like it's the 70s. And they don't understand the type of technology that we're up against with law enforcement and the things that, that we're doing out there. We will get caught up for it. They don't see it like that. They still see, things that were happening in the 70s, and it's not like that no more, man. These guys are dinosaurs. Anyway, eventually everybody got on track. Now, this is when I had that meeting right there, but this is when I would end up catching a violation over there in Salinas. So I might as well just kind of get into everything. Otherwise, I'm gonna run through inner demons. If I skip over too much stuff, I'll come to the end quick. So at the time when I'm out there in Salinas, they put me up in this house. It was kind of like a halfway house for parolees. There was, I want to say, about 10 other parolees that were staying there, but it was a huge house. It was like an apartment complex that they had separated into two buildings. But me going there, literally within 2 or 3 weeks, I had that place like it was mine. The manager that was there, that lived in the front office, he was a Cuban cat, and he had his hands in all kind of shit. He was slinging dope. He was a drunk. He had hoes coming in and out of his spot all the time. So once I got to know this individual, I basically slid up under him and I controlled that house straight up. And I'm not saying that with any arrogance, but I had to, because I had to utilize the resources for the things that we would end up getting involved in later on. All the C's that were out there all came through there. Smokey, even Fleabag Lencho came through there. That's when I pulled the shotgun on him and, scared the shit out of him, made him think I was going to blow his head off. But, they all came through there, and we were running that place like, it belonged to us. Now, let me just say this. So I would end up, so there was 10 of us that were living there. And when I first got out there, I first paroled, board off picked me up. For those of you that are from Salinas that been around for a while, you guys know the infamous board off. That's a name right there that's probably is turning heads right now. Cats hear the name board off. They know he's an old school parole officer that used to give the homies the blues out there. If you were a high control parolee and you were a registered gang member, you were going on his caseload. And that cat would chase you around Salinas, give you a hard time. He gave me that speech the first day I got out there. I know who the fuck you are. I know what you're doing. I know what you're involved in. I'm going to tell you right now, you even look crooked and you're gone. We got a zero tolerance policy with you. We're not going to play with you. We don't know whose side you on or who you roll with. There's so much shit going on within the NF right now, though. We're not fucking around. So, board off kind of put all that in my ear the first day I moved out there. But anyway, the first day I got out there, Smokey, I called him up. I'm like, bro, this is where they got me up at. And, he came over there quick that same day. Came and dropped me off a bunch of cash. He had loaded up his El Camino with a bunch of, some furniture from. It was just a little room that I was in, but there wasn't nothing in there. So he brought a TV over there. He brought a little hot plate. Straight bum status, man. I had to be out there though, because that's where parole was sending me. I had a place to stay. I had a house in the city, but because they were making me stay out there, I had to live in these type of spots, these type of areas, these halfway houses and these hotels. Anyway, so I would end up bringing guns over there. I had guns stashed up under the house over there. I was conducting all kind of illegal activity over there. We were slinging dope out of there. We were doing all kinds of shit. I remember the first day I got over there too. I might as well tell you guys some of the raunchy ass stories. But the first day I got over there, I'm fresh out. I'm healthy. My t-shirt's filled up. You know what I mean? I got that look. I'm glowing. And I go and talk to this cat. He calls me and he's like, hey, man, you just got out the joint. He's like, it's all good here, man. I'm the manager, but hey, I don't I don't sweat you guys, man. I let you guys do what the fuck you want to do, man. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not no cop, and I don't fuck around, boo whoop. And so I'm like, cool. This is gonna be a good relationship right here. So, it had potential. I'm like, yeah, man, I can work with this. So while we're there, this female comes by. Her name ended up being Misty. And she was definitely she was a prostitute. I don't want to say what I was gonna say. So she was a prostitute, and she would come by, and she was a tweaker. She would come by, she would smoke that shit, and when she smoked it, she starts stripping, and she'd be dancing naked and doing all kind of crazy shit. It caught me off guard. I'm fresh out. I haven't even been with the female yet because it's like it's day one. It's day one. Usually, well, I take that back. I take that back. Vicky had come up there. Vicky had come up there and for the first day or two, but then she went back to Ukiah. So this was like the third day I was out. But I'm fresh out. I'm fresh out. So she comes over and I see her and I'm not even paying attention to her. I'm talking to him. She's dirty. She got on some flip-flops with some dirty toes. And if a female's toes are dirty, that's one of the first things I look at on a woman is her hands and her feet, pedicure and manicure. If that ain't up to par, then 9 times out of 10, she's not taking care of other things, and I'm cool, But I wasn't looking at her like that anyway. When she came over and she starts dancing around, and I'm talking to this cat, and it's like she was just a distraction, but she's dancing. Next thing you know, she comes out her clothes and she lays on the floor and she's laying there spread eagle playing with herself, and I'm like, bro, what the hell is this, bro? You know what I'm saying? He was laughing. He's like, hey, go ahead, man. I'm like, hell nah. I'm good, man. Straight up. Anyway, so Misty she would be somebody that would constantly come around that spot that I lived at. Like all the time she would pop up. She would come over there. And she had a habit of doing exactly what every time she would smoke that stuff. And next thing you know, she come up out her stuff. And she was just a freak show, man. Anyway, so eventually I would end up getting caught up. I got caught up. Some fool that was living there, I thought he was cool. I fronted him a little bit of dope. He couldn't pay it back, so I took something that belonged to him. Next thing you know, somebody called the cops. I'm in handcuffs. I'm going back to prison. So I end up going back. Now, at this point, I got like 5 months left before I discharge. So they don't send me to Pelican Bay. They don't send me back up to the Bay. I'm hoping I can go to the Bay. But when I end up going to the Monterey County Jail, and this was only like the second time I've been in the jail. But when I go in there, they're leery of me. The gang intel in there were like, we don't know a lot about you. We know who you are. We know a little bit about your history, but there's a split going on right now within the NF, and we don't know who you fall, like who you're what side you're loyal to, and we're not taking a chance with you. We're gonna get you the fuck up out of here. They did not want me in that jail, so they threw me in an isolation cell. I was trying to get back there to C-Pod. I think that's C-Pod where everybody was at. As soon as I got back there, I told one of the SEALs, hey, go let Hanrahan and Gallegos and all them cats know that I'm here. Let them know Boxer from San Francisco is here. I'm telling you, those are my boys. You guys need to let me go back there. But they were like, nah. They were tripping off the tattoo on the back of my head, and they were just like, nah, man, we're putting you on a bus. First thing smoking Wednesday. And they weren't lying. I was on that bus first thing Wednesday. So the Monterey County Jail. I told you guys when I first got there, it wasn't, although it wasn't this time though, it was the first time I got there. When I was on the phone, I ended up getting rushed by some upstate some sureños. Shout out to the sureños, man. You know, I didn't know what color they wore or you know what color the homeboys wore as far as jail garb or all that. But I ended up finding out they ended up walking some cats by me that were, I guess they were going to court. It was court movement, and I'm on the phone. I got one hand cuffed to the phone, and I got one hand that was loose. Luckily, it was my right hand, my good hand. So, you know, I got rushed while I was on the phone, but I'm doing what I could. Throwing just straight uppercuts and right jabs. But anyway, so that was during the first time I went to the Monterey County Jail. I did a war story on that. I told you guys about that incident. Anyway, so you know, I end up going back to Corcoran. When I get to Corcoran this time, I want to say I ended up selling up with a cat named Jimmy Ubiowski or something. Jubiarowski or something like that. He had a crazy last name. He was like German and Asian. Cool ass cat. Pancho from Salinas was over there. You know, I was just there for 5 months. That's the shortest violation I've ever done. But it was because, you know, I was gonna discharge. They couldn't give me no more time. I'd already maxed out my 4 years. So, you know, I laid on back for 5 months, rolled that out. And when I paroled from Corcoran on April 4th of 19 no April 4th of 2000. I want to say 2003. April 4th of 2003, I got out free for the first time in my adult life, not on parole. This was the first time I was not on parole from the time I was 18. From 18 up until 33 years old, I had always been on parole, but I got off. So this is when I was talking about earlier when, you know, at that point, I lost contact with all my channels. You know, Conejo again, he got stripped. Rock situation developed with him. So, you know, I would end up going back up to Ukiah. When I got out, I paroled. Vicky came and picked me up. You know, she was out there in Salinas, and we kicked it for that night. We kicked it over there in the morning. I went to Barbecue Bob's. I picked up my guns, some other things that he was holding for me, and I was like, I'm bouncing. I'm out. Smokey had went back on a case. He got caught up with some bullshit, and they ended up giving him a life case. Thank God that, you know, he ended up going in on that life case. He did everything he had to do to come back home, and now he is out. He ended up getting paroled, but he was over there in Mule Creek for a long time. I mean, Smokey, he did everything he had to do. That boy played the role. He became the gang coordinator over there and was running programs, and I'm talking about doing everything. If I would have seen him, I would have pulled him aside and been like, boy, this ain't you. You know, but you playing this one off to a T. But, you know, like I said, he did what he had to do. Unfortunately for him, he had some hardships along the way. His wife also passed away while he was in custody. And, you know, it was devastating, I'm sure, just like it was for me, because he, you know, unlike me, he had a lot of kids with Lisa, the mother of his children. So anyway, that's when I would go back up to Ukiah and I would kind of just try to fade out. Now, a few things happened that I'm going to get into before I close this one up. So, you know, I'm in touch with Chico and I'm in touch with some other brothers from Salinas. And, you know, they basically let me know that Corny and them want me to plug back in with them, which was cool. I understood and I expected it. So I had to get a visitor lined up to drive all the way out to Santa Rita. Unfortunately, at that time, too, I ended up meeting that Fleabag Lencho's girl, Peggy. I ended up meeting Pugnacious Petty. Pugnacious Petty. No, I'm not going to say that. She passed away, so I'm going to keep it respectful. But I would end up meeting Peggy out there in front of Santa Rita County Jail. And, I sent my visitor in with another visit, well, with her and another visitor that was going to pull out Pinky. So I want to say it was Carol. I can't remember. But anyway, so, a couple things had happened. So at one point, Chico calls me up and he's like, "Hey, brother, we need to deal with something and I need to slide through and I need your advice on something and I also need your assistance on something." So I'm not going to, for those of you that stay in the know as far as what goes on out there in Salinas, you guys will be able to pick up on this and you'll know who I'm talking about. But so there was it wasn't a gangland. I want to say the guy that ran Sons of Anarchy, the creator of that, I forget his name, but he had another series where he talked about gangs and he ran a thing on the NF. And in that segment, he talked extensively about an individual that was confronted by 3 NF members, about his mother being an informant. And basically, I'm gonna tell you guys what happened. So Chico comes out. He comes out with another homeboy named Gabe. Gabe got a jail, a solid homeboy, got nothing but love and respect for Gabe. Money G, that's what they call him, or G Money. So he comes out with him, and he comes out with the third individual, who was also a good dude, highly respectable. So Chico gives me a heads up and kind of tells me what's going on with this individual. And, with that said, we agreed to sit this guy down and have a conversation with him. And basically what the conversation involved is, if you guys watched that episode I'm talking about, this individual did an interview on that documentary and he talked about it. He basically said, I went to this guy's house and there was a couple NF members and these guys were basically telling me that my mom was an informant. He's like, they're not telling me, that they were gonna kill. They're not asking me if they can kill. They're telling me basically that they're gonna take my mother out. We basically tell them that your mom's working with the authorities against another homie, and we can't allow that to happen. She's in line to testify in this case, and where do you stand with this, bro? What's your thoughts on it? And the whole purpose of the meeting was to pick his brain, see where his mind was at, and to deal with it from there, to see how he was going to react. How he was going to react basically dictated how we were going to handle it. So, I did a lot of the talking. Me and Chico did most of the talking. Gabe wasn't an NF member. He was just a solid Norteño that was always there, was always with us. And again, I have nothing but the utmost of respect for Gabe. So, we're telling this guy, like, look, man, your mom, she's cooperating, and in so many words, we ask him if he's willing to give up her location, and if necessary, to participate. Now, in these kind of situations right here, a lot of the times, out of respect, you won't be asked to participate unless you're the only one that can get a location, a drop on this individual, or for whatever reasons, they want you to participate because of some type of disciplinary reason or something like that. But, usually that respect is extended to where you're not going to participate. We're not going to ask you to help us, knock down your mom. But in that situation, because of the circumstances, everything that was involved, he was asked if he would be willing to assist. And, I'm watching him as we're talking to him, and I could see his mind racing. It was almost like he wasn't hearing us, and he was just taking it in and thinking. But at the end of the day, when he did speak, he was like, yeah, if that's what the familia, if that's what the familia feels like, you know, is the right thing to do, then you guys know where I'm at with it. I'm fully on board with it. So, in the documentary, he says, so, they asked if I was willing to help kill my mother, and I told him that I was. Well, after it shoots to a commercial, comes back, and, he basically reaches his senses, and he's like, you know what, after thinking about it, which was probably within the course of 2 or 3 minutes later, he don't say nothing, he don't tell us, but according to the documentary that he spoke on, he was like, after I started thinking about it, he was like, man, there's no way in hell I am not gonna help you kill my mother, which is understandable. It's a unfortunate thing. And I'm gonna touch on that in a minute, but he basically made it sound like he was with it and that he would participate, and he dropped the location, and that was that. However, when they ended up leaving, obviously they left at some point, and I get a call from Chico the same week, and he's like, he's like, homeboy fell off the map. We can't get a hold of him. I don't know where he's at. He's gone. He's AWOL. He bounced. My guess is that he's with his mom and they cut tread. So I was like, bro, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do about it. It's like, until they pop back up or until we get a location, there's nothing that can be done about it. Homeboy that it affects, that case, there's just gonna have to tell him, bro. They cut tread. So anyway, what ends up happening is homeboy, they leave for a while and they make the mistake of coming back to Salinas. He comes back, he has some type of epiphany where he sees the light. He talked to Jesus. That's what he said. He had a conversation with God, and God told him to go to the county jail and confess his role in a murder, which he does. So he goes that they don't know nothing about. He gets himself locked up. He's back in jail now. And at some point, in the morning, early one morning, he gets up, he's washing his teeth, or he's washing his teeth. He's washing his face, brushing his teeth, and he's got the news playing in the background. He's got the TV on, and he hears the news, and it says 41-year-old female killed in, I want to say it was somewhere out there in I think it was Soledad. And he heard that. It was like, he turned around, he's like, whoa, 41, that's how old my mom is, and Soledad, that's where she's at. Well, it ended up being his mom. A location was, eventually she was found, and that's what happened to her. Now, for those of you youngsters that, are still gravitating towards this lifestyle and that still think that there's some glory in it, there's things to glorify about it. Just understand this. When I made my commitment to the NF, I was asked things like, are you willing to abandon your child if it's on his deathbed, if your brothers call you? Basically, if I have a dying child, I'm supposed to, they asked me if I'm willing to turn my back on that child and go to my brother's aid. I was also asked a question that was more direct, if I was willing to kill my own flesh and blood, if it came down to it. I understood what that meant. And it means exactly what it means, what I just finished talking about, the situation that brother was in. So you guys, I'm sure a lot of you have seen whole families that were entrenched within the gang lifestyle. Everybody from brother, sister, mother, father, cousin, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, primo, tío, grandmother, grandfather, everybody, all the way down to the kids in diapers. You got homeboys putting guns in these little kids' hands, and they're still in diapers, taking pictures of them, thinking it's cool. That's how they grow up. That's the mentality that, that they end up being exposed to over the years. You got graffiti on the walls inside the house. It's just that whole culture, it gets embedded in them. And a lot of the times, the whole family will be involved, like I said. Now, this was a similar situation. This guy's mom, she was well known out there in Salinas, and she always embraced the carnales out there. When he was a youngster, she used to tell him that all the carnales that would come to the house, these are all your uncles. So, she exposed him to that lifestyle. And over years, that's who he became. So, my point is you might have a little sister that might facilitate communication, or she might be a three-way phone hub, somebody that facilitates communication through the phones, or a mail drop, whatever. She's somehow, some way assisting the NF. And this is the problem this is the thing about involving your family. And I know I'm going in a lot of different directions here, but when we need to find a visitor to go and pull out somebody and facilitate some highly sensitive information, or we need people that will hold certain things for us, we automatically turn towards those that we trust the most, which is family. A lot of the times it's girlfriends, wives, kids, mothers, cousins, brothers, whatever. But once you expose them to that, you're also exposing them to a lot more than just that. You're exposing them to the possibility of them becoming a target. If your little sister's fighting a case and at some point she ends up cooperating and she starts telling on the homies because, she's trying to get up out of this other case, well, now she becomes a target because you exposed her. She has that knowledge because you put her in that situation, but now she becomes a target. And at some point, you might be the only one that can get close to her because you're family and you know where she lives. And blood's supposed to be thicker than water. What do you do in that situation? It's the ultimate test of loyalty. Do you help knock her down with the homies? Or do you tell her, you know what, get the fuck out of Dodge. They're looking for you and they got you greenlit. You know what I'm saying? So you need to bounce. There's a lot of homies that get put in that situation because they expose their family. Again, you youngsters that are gravitating towards this, it's not my place to tell you whether or not you want to be involved in gangs. That's your decision. You got to lay in your own bed and you have to be accountable for your own choices. You got to stand on them. But if that's what you're going to do, just keep that in mind. Don't expose your family to that whole side of just that lifestyle. Once you do that, you're putting them in harm's way. Trust me, just the fact that they might know something about something and they become somebody that they can speculate on them because they have knowledge of it. So maybe they're the ones telling when they're not, but because they know about it, they're going to get knocked down. So I'm telling you guys, when it comes to your family, leave them out of it. When it comes to, your lady, your wife, your kids, leave them out. Go find somebody else to go run up in the visiting room and get your directives or to facilitate your communications. Don't bring your family into it because it never ends well for them. Anyways, before I close this up, there was one last thing I wanted to touch on. So, I covered a lot right there. That was a lot that was going on at that time. We had that big meeting. By this time, I discharged. When I paroled from Corcoran, it was the first time I paroled out of there. There was no bus terminal out there. I couldn't even catch the Greyhound. I had to literally get on a train. I had to catch a train to Stockton, and then from Stockton, I had to jump on a bus. But it was crazy. The first time I get out as an adult, at 33 and I'm not on parole. I didn't know how to act. I'll say this about parole. Parole always kept me in check. It always kept me in check because I would never keep dope, guns, or anything at the house because I knew that there was always a chance of a random search, the parole officer making a surprise visit. So parole in some ways was good for me. Anyways, I'm going to keep this one short. This episode 46, I'm going to see if I can get out another one for you guys. If not, I'll hit you with a war story, whatever. I want to try to get more content out to you guys. So we're going to be pushing content. I'm not sure when we're going to jump on another live. It might be Monday or Tuesday now. We were going to jump on tomorrow, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But let me just say this, though. Those of you, again, that won the last raffle, if you guys won a shirt, you guys won whatever you might have won. If you haven't tapped in with Sandman, tap in with him so you can get your winnings. You guys need to drop your mailing information so that we can get it to you. There's still about 5 or 6 things that need to go out that haven't gone out because you guys haven't touched base with Sandman. So you guys get at him, man, so we can get you your winnings and we can get on to this next raffle. Anyways, with that said, this episode 50. There I go. Anyways, you guys, this episode 46 of Inner Demons. And with that said, this is your boy B, and I'm out.